A very good evening to you if you're just joining us. Well, we begin with this story. The Pretoria High Court has ruled that confession statements made by two accused in the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial were voluntary and freely made. 5 men are on trial for the footballer's 2014 murder in what the state claims was a robbery gone wrong. Newzroom Afrika's Mnisi has this report.
About 17 witnesses took to the stand to give evidence for and against the admission of the confession statements and pointings out made by accused 1 and 2, Mnisi and Bongani Ntanzi. This includes a magistrate, a court interpreter, police officers and a medical practitioner, amongst others.
After careful analysis of the evidence adduced by the state, and after careful analysis of the cross-examination interposed by the defense against the evidence adduced by the state, and after careful analysis of the rebuttal evidence of accused number 1 and 2 and the cross-examination interposed by the state, and after careful analysis of the heads of argument by all the parties concerned and the verbal submissions made by all the counsel in this court, I have dealt, not like this magistrate did, I've dealt with all the evidence relating to whether the said alleged confessions were made freely and voluntarily in the sound and sober senses of the deponents without any force or coercion.
The trial within a trial was triggered by an objection to the admissibility of these confession statements by the two accused.
They did not make statements. They did not make confessions. They were told to sign documents which were fully completed, and they were told sign here, sign there, initial here, initial there. That was the initial defense. The second defense is that they were assaulted, tortured.
But their objection seemingly failed to prove that the state did not meet the legal requirements to prove that these confession statements were made freely, voluntarily, and in sane and sober senses without any undue influence.
This court has reached the following conclusion. 1, it rules that the confession made by accused number 1 was made freely and voluntarily without any coercion when accused number 1 was in his firm, sound and sober senses. 2, the confession made by accused number 2 in respect of the said confession being taken by Mrs. Ronje, the magistrate, the court rules that it was made freely and voluntarily without any coercion when accused number 2 was in his full and sober senses. And also the confession made before Colonel Rapudi was also made by accused number 1, 2. Freely and voluntarily without any coercion when he was in his sound and sober senses. And also the pointing out made by accused number 2 before Colonel Khadebe were also made freely and voluntarily.
The court emphasized that this is not a final judgment but a ruling that may at a later stage be reviewed. With the confession statements admissible in the main trial, the court and public will now get to hear the contents of those confessions, but the evidence contained there can only be used against the deponent and not the other accused, regardless of whether or not they were mentioned in them. The main trial will commence on Friday. For Newzroom Afrika on Channel 405, I'm Mnisi at the High Court in Pretoria.